Oh, hey! Didn't see you there. Hello, I'm Jonathan Wagner, host of the Dohyo, and today we have a very special episode, celebrating the career of Takakeisho Takanobu. So today, for the last time, we're talking Takakeisho.
Roll the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of the Dohyo. We're here in the corner with the radiator, sans blue void, to give tribute to my favorite sumo wrestler, Takakeisho Takanobu, former Ozeki, former champion, and all-time Battle Hamster.
He will fling you out the ring, though he can't chase you very far. He's a cross between a bowling ball and neutron star. He's Takakeisho.
Fortunately, if you're interested in Takakeisho, is this the channel for you, as I have done multiple episodes on Takakeisho, and most of my thoughts about Takakeisho and like biographical information, like analysis of his sumo, we did that in a previous episode, episode 35, Talkin' Takakeisho. Check it out. But if you've watched any sumo over the past 8 years, you probably know about and have a very strong opinion about Takakeisho. So if we look at just the bare stats, Takakeisho had a very impressive career. He was in sumo for exactly 10 years, only 59 basho, because remember we canceled that COVID basho. And he was ozeki for 30 basho, meaning he was an ozeki for over half of his career. He finished with 4 championships, 8 jun yusho, including 3 playoff losses, 7 special prizes, and 3 kinboshi. Now, those 4 yusho put Takakeisho in second place on the list of most championships for a non-yokozuna, second only to Ozeki Kaio. And let's remember that Ozeki Kaio wrestled for a full decade longer than Takakeisho did. And, fun fact, Takakeisho beat every yokozuna he faced at least once. Alright, so those are the stats, and if you watched any other recap of Takakeisho's career, and there have been a few, you've probably known those stats, but the question I have is, what will the legacy be? Now, when it comes to overall legacy, I think Takakeisho's 4 yusho are going to keep him in, the discussion throughout sumo history of, greatest ozeki, and we're going to talk about the specifics. But I think Takakeisho, unfortunately, doesn't quite reach the top level of former ozeki. For better or for worse, I think Takakeisho's career is going to be defined by sort of the lack of generational contemporaries of Takakeisho. I mean, there were contemporaries, he did face people, but there weren't as many yokozuna ozeki level wrestlers when Takakeisho was at his peak. Now, I'm not saying that Takakeisho would have 0 yusho had he started his career 10 years earlier, but I'm very sure he would not have 4. Now, if you look at all 4 of Takakeisho's yusho, he only had 1 match against an active yokozuna. Day 1, November 2018, he faced Kiseno Sato, and Kiseno Sato would then go Kyujo very soon after, having no wins in that tournament. And then in the next tournament, he would go Kyujo, having no wins in that tournament, and then he would retire. So I wouldn't say that Takakeisho was facing full-strength Yokozuna Kiseno Sato at that time. In what was arguably his best basho ever, which was November of 2020, he faced 0 yokozuna or ozeki at all in that tournament, although it should be noted, he did have to face a resurgent Komusubi Terunofuji in that tournament. Twice. And if you look at his 30 basho at ozeki, 18 of those basho did not have a yokozuna finishing the tournament, and for 4 of them, Takakeisho was the only ozeki. He also spent 9 basho kataban and 2 at ozeki wake. And I know I've said many, many times before on this channel, it is so hard to judge rikishi across eras. There are just so many variables. But one thing I can say is that yusho are very context dependent on who you are facing. And yusho really can't be everything, especially when you're talking about an ozeki resume. Right below Takakeisho on that most yusho for a non-yokozuna list is Takayumi with 3 yusho. But he was one of our worst ozeki ever. I mean, just looking at the ozeki part. So I don't think I would put Takakeisho in the very top tier of best ozeki who didn't make yokozuna. That's for Kaio, Chio Taikai, Konishiki. I think maybe the tier below, but still in the top 10, would give us Takakeisho. Come July 2021, we had what has been referred to as the Ichinojo incident. Takakeisho went face first into the Mongolian mountain Ichinojo, and it did not go very well for him. And if you've watched any of the Takakeisho tributes before you've watched this, you've probably heard that this was the moment, that was the beginning of the end for the career. But it wasn't as sharp as a drop-off as people keep saying it was. He won 2 of his 4 yusho and 3 of his 8 junyusho after this injury. But to be perfectly fair, Takakeisho only had 2 basho where he got 13 wins, and they both came before the Ichinojo injury. Now, I'm going to go out on a reasonably sturdy limb and say that this neck injury didn't end his career, but what it did was it sort of set the timer for the end of his career. Now, the neck was always going to be the issue. He has to close that tachi gap as soon as possible. As we mentioned in the Takakeisho episode when we were breaking down his style, Takakeisho, because of his little T-Rex arms, is highly ineffective at distance and at very, very close up. The danger zone for Takakeisho and his opponent is if you are between a foot and 2 feet away from Takakeisho, you are in a world of hurt. You got to get further or closer. So this means Takakeisho is incredibly vulnerable at the tachi as he's just rushing forward trying to get to his opponent. And the first thing you get to is the arms and then the face. Thus, he had to lead with the neck. So this injury, I think, was always going to come, but because it happened at this point in Takakeisho's history, he has now retired at 28. If it had happened at a later date, he might have retired a little bit later, but I think, yeah, this one was always in the cards. Now, I have found online that there is a lot of Takakeisho haters out there, and if any of you have joined us, welcome. Please don't be too mean in the comments. And while a lot of these criticisms tend to be physical, there is one recurring criticism that comes up regarding Takakeisho Sumo. He's too one-dimensional. He's too one-dimensional to truly make Yokozuna. He's too one-dimensional to make Yokozuna. He's too one-dimensional to be one of the greats. He's too one-dimensional. My question is, too one-dimensional for what? So let's look at Takakeisho compared to some recent ozeki. So, Takakeisho has 441 career wins. Now, if we look into the kimarite of those wins, we see that 205 of them are oshidashi, that's about 46%. And if you look up there in like the top 5-6 kimarite, we see a lot of pushing and thrusting techniques like sukiyotoshi, sukidashi, oshitaoshi, okuridashi. So yes, Takakeisho, over 75% of his winning techniques are push and thrust techniques. Over his career, he had 19 different winning kimarite and averaged out to 9.5 different kimarite per 50 wins. So yes, I would say that 75% of your kimarite being of one sort of type does make you a bit of a one-trick pony as a wrestler, but let's see how that compares to other recent ozeki. Not Onosato, he doesn't have enough basho yet, but the other recent ones. So Kotazakura, 361 wins, and if you look at the top of his kimarite list, his top 2 winning techniques are yorikiri and oshidashi, sort of like the yin and the yang of sumo techniques. So it seems that Kotazakura easily clears that line of being at least a 2-trick pony. And in his career, he's had 24 winning kimarite, with an average of 14.2 different kimarite per 50 wins. Former and possibly future ozeki Kirishima had 372 wins. Kirishima has 104 yorikiri wins, which is about 28%, and then his next most common drops down to like 9% at 33 oshidashi. In Kirishima's career, he has 30 winning kimarite, averaging out 16.5 kimarite per 50 wins. And looking at our youngest and currently longest tenured ozeki, Hoshoryu. He has 305 wins, his most popular winning technique, also yorikiri, at about 20% with 62, and then immediately goes down to oshidashi with about 12% at 37. In his relatively short career, he's had 35 winning kimarite, averaging over 18 kimarite per 50 wins. So if we're looking at the number of kimarite per 50 wins, Hoshoryu is almost double that of Takakeisho. So yes, looking at the kimarite, Takakeisho was clearly the most one-dimensional of all of the recent ozeki, and all it got him was 4 championships and 8 junyusho, as opposed to these other ozeki who are much more versatile, who combined have come up with 3 yusho and 6 junyusho? Yes, I'm fully willing to admit that Takakeisho, as a sumo wrestler, was relatively one-dimensional, but if you look at his first oyakata, Yokozuna Taka no Hana, he had half of his wins with yorikiri. Compare that to the 46% oshidashi that Takakeisho had. But no one ever calls Taka no Hana one-dimensional, a one-trick pony. I wonder why. I know, in my sumo experience, pusher thrusters tend to be called one-dimensional, one-trick ponies, not versatile enough to do it. But if you're like a strong belt wrestler, you are good at imposing your brand of sumo. Now, I have studied a lot of Yokozuna and Ozeki runs. In fact, I have studied every single one of them in the modern sumo era. I have found no favoritism given to belt wrestlers over pusher thrusters, or for versatile wrestlers over one-trick ponies. Wins are wins, and that's what gets you promoted. The one exception I have found is that they're like, if you henka a whole bunch, we may not make you Ozeki, but we are going to talk about henkas in a second. The much larger question is, if the vast majority of Yokozuna were belt fighters, does that mean that belt sumo is inherently more effective? But that is a much larger question that we can get into in this episode. So in preparation for this episode, I've watched a lot of Takakeisho clips online, like a lot. And one of the things I've noticed, weirdly, most of the Takakeisho clips I find online are him losing to another sumo wrestler who is having their career moment. Wrestlers like Tokishoryu, Mitakeyumi, Abi. But it was actually a little bit harder for me to find the videos for Takakeisho's triumphs. And part of that is because he's been in Ozeki for so long, he's gonna be in the most important matches at the end of the day. Part of it is due to the haters. You maybe won't want to celebrate his accomplishments as much. I get it. And part of it may be that we just don't see Takakeisho as having a real deep sumo legacy that we have to honor in the way we would have to honor a Hakuho or even a Kisa no Sato or a Konishiki. I would like to posit a few what-ifs. I would like to posit what would happen to Takakeisho's legacy if we changed the outcome of 3 specific matches in his career. Alright, September 2020, day 8, last match of the day. Takakeisho is cruising, doing so well in this tournament, and he faces Tochinoshin, the Georgian giant, who Takakeisho had a great record against. And what happened? Yep, Tochinoshin henkered Takakeisho, and no one, even Tochinoshin, seemed that happy about it. Alright, so Takakeisho finished that tournament with a 12-3 Jun Yusho, finishing one behind a 13-2 Shodai. He has a career record against Tochinoshin of a 90% win record. So I think if Tochinoshin doesn't henka, Takakeisho is almost assured to win that match and end up in a playoff. Now yes, as numerous people have said, including Chris Sumo, if Takakeisho had just beaten Shodai, he probably wouldn't have won outright, but their record wasn't quite as one-sided. Takakeisho did have a winning record against Shodai, 16-7, but it wasn't necessarily a gimme. Then, Takakeisho went on to win the November tournament with a 13-2. So, even if he hadn't beaten Shodai in this hypothetical playoff I've just made up, that would have been 2 13-2s in a row, getting him 26 wins over 2, which, as we know from the Yokozuna Run episode, gives him an excellent chance to get promoted. And yes, if he had beaten Shodai in this hypothetical playoff, that would have been 2 Yusho in a row, which would have definitely gotten him to Yokozuna. And yes, let's talk about Tochinoshin for a second. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of Tochinoshin. Now, Tochinoshin at this point was done with Ozeki. He was working his way down the Maegashira ranks. This was his second to last tournament ever in the Joy. So how many times is he going to be facing an Ozeki at the last match of the day? How many cash envelopes were there waiting to be taken? Alright, so this is November 2022. It was the 3-way playoff between Takakeisho, Abi, and Takayasu. As we all remember, Abi ended up winning, but do we remember how that win happened? Abi first beat Takayasu, who then got hurt, and then Abi beat Takakeisho for the tournament victory. Now, Takakeisho had trouble with Abi in his career with only a 6-8 record, and you can understand why. They're both pusher thrusters, and Abi's hands and arms are just so much longer. Takakeisho may be stronger, but he just has farther to go before he starts hitting that wave action Supari. So, if Takakeisho had beaten Abi there, as we all recall, Takayasu was injured in the Abi-Takayasu match. So even though Takakeisho wasn't necessarily a gimme versus Takayasu, 11-10, with the injury, I would almost guarantee that if Takakeisho had beaten Abi, he probably would have won that Yusho. Now here's where the what-if gets really interesting. The next Basho, January of 2023, Takakeisho won with a 12-3 Yusho. So if he had won the championship in November, that would have been 2 Yusho in a row at 12-3. Now, Takakeisho is only the 3rd wrestler to win back-to-back 12-3 Yusho. The first one was Yokozuna Musashimaru, who did it back in '99. And the second one was Terunofuji in the spring of 2021 on his Ozeki run. So this would be literally the only time in sumo history where an Ozeki, hopefully trying to get promoted to Yokozuna, would have gotten 2 back-to-back yusho with only 24 combined wins. And for those of us who remember What Makes a Yokozuna Run episode, we know that 26 is the bar they usually like to get to. Would they promote a 24? I think they would, because they have never not promoted 2 consecutive yusho. Yeah, and that third what if. September of 2023. This wasn't a playoff loss, this was a playoff win. What would have happened if Takakeisho hadn't hanked? So as we know, this yusho was sort of the last hurrah of Takakeisho. He never ever got to double-digit wins again. He got the yusho with only 11 wins, and he had to hanka to get there. But, as with Tochinoshin, put yourself in Takakeisho's shoes. He's obviously on the downside of his career, multiple kyujos in 2023 already to this point, covered in cupping marks, and you have a chance right here. With a win, you get a 4th yusho. And the sumo gods blessed him with a young, jumpy opponent who was overcommitting at his tachiai. What would you have done? Now, as we've shown, Tochinoshin, but also Terunofuji, even Hakuho, have hanked in huge moments in their careers. Is their legacy different? Do we look at them different because of that hanka? Now, I personally believe that Takakeisho hanked because he didn't think he could beat Atami Fuji straight up. So, if we change the outcome of that match and Takakeisho loses, what is Takakeisho's legacy with only 3 yusho? Yes, what if he's only equal to Tochiazuma, Chiotaikai, and Mitakeyumi? What does that do to his legacy? Ultimately, what is the value of an 11-4 hanka yusho? Is it somehow less? Will we remember? And if we do remember, will we care in the future? That's one of the reasons I do this show, so that there can be sort of a primary source document for what people, or at least one person, thought of sumo at this specific time in history. And yeah, I guess I care just a little bit, because I know if I had a long and wonderful career, I wouldn't want that to be the last thing on my highlight reel. And yes, even though I love Takakeisho, I think it's important that we remember how he won his last yusho, because it is a wonderful sumo moment. Like them or hate them, sumo moments are happening all the time. And a lot of us, especially me, can get focused on the stats. And the stats do tell a story, but it is the sumo moments that make that story worth telling. So, I started watching sumo in November of 2016. That tournament was won 14-1 by Yokozuna Kakuryu, and the Judyo Yusho was won by a guy named Sato. Now, Sato got promoted up to Makauchi, and he showed up with an attitude and a brand new name, Takakeisho. I didn't even know you could change your name in sumo. So, Takakeisho strolls into Makauchi and loses his first match. In fact, loses his first 4 matches. And I start thinking as like a noob sumo fan, like, ugh, Fat Elvis isn't ready for prime time. Maybe he should have spent some more time in AAA, which is what I called Judyo for way too long. But in every one of those losses, they seem to get a little bit better. And like, that 4th loss was really, really close. And then day 5, he got his first win. And then he won 3 more in a row after that. And he finished the tournament 7-8 and managed to stay in Makauchi. And I was like, all right, Fat Elvis, let's see what you got. I'm gonna follow this guy and see what he does. And what he did was pretty damn impressive. And the following January, he made Sanyaku for the first time. And the following January after that, he was on his Ozeki run. And the rest, as we now know, is history. Takakeisho was the very first person in sumo to become like, my guy. And if you've watched sports for a while, or if you're as old as I am, you have now lived through the point where if you watch a sport, you see someone who they catch your eye and you love the way they play the game. And you watch them through the beginning, the middle, and now end of their career. It's a wonderful thing, but also at times like this, very bittersweet. And yeah, Takakeisho was the first one I got invested in. Takakeisho was the first person who taught me that Makauchi Sumo is actually a 42-character soap opera in which everyone has a backstory and a reason they need to win this match. And I know that certainly Takakeisho has no idea who I am, and I don't matter in the Takakeisho verse, but he has inspired me, and I would like to thank him for 8 amazing years. Slight digression, but I promise you it's going somewhere. As most of you know, my day job is that I'm an entertainer. It may not surprise you, but bodies shaped like mine are not necessarily celebrated in my field. You do not see a lot of sort of famous working entertainers with the pear with hair physique I tend to rock. And as I've mentioned about Takakeisho, bodies like his are rarely celebrated in any context, let alone athletics. If you just go to Reddit and put in Takakeisho, you will just find so much Takakeisho hate based on his body. I mean, yeah, he's 5'8". He was pushing 400 pounds at his heaviest. He looks like he struggles to breathe a lot. Do I think that Takakeisho wishes he had a different, more versatile body? Yes, of course he does. But that's not a choice any of us, like short of radical surgery, get to make. I can honestly say that in my 20s, when I was looking for acting work, people looked at this body and didn't know what to do with it. I was told to my face that my body didn't work for most things, that I needed to either lose 20 pounds or gain 50 so that casting directors would know I had picked a side. Even my college professor just looked at me and was like, I have no idea what to do with this. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I have gone through moments where I've been fit and I've gone through workout cycles, but this is the body I've got. Even though it may get a little bit better when I work out, I'm never going to be an Avenger. My head's big, my legs are really short, my dancing is always going to be specific, but I do the best with what I can. I work as hard as I can, and this body has now taken me to some amazing places. So in a way, I guess that's why Takakeisho became my first guy. He took this short, weird, specific body and he turned it into one of the most devastating sumo attacks of the 21st century and became a champion 4 times over. I mean, I frankly think Takakeisho has already won, the legacy battle. We're not comparing him to other undersized pusher thrusters with T-Rex arms like Takekaze, Chiyomaru, or right now, Bushozan. We're comparing him to the best Ozeki of all time and wondering if he fits in the top 10. Now, he was never the best in the sport, but on the right day, he could beat anyone. He faced the best, and as long as his body allowed, he faced them head first. And now, as the youngest Oyakata, he has over 36 years to excel at teaching the next generation of sumo. Thank you so much for watching the Dohyo. Please, if you haven't, please like and subscribe. That just lets YouTube know that you love the Dohyo and you want to see it, so when you show up, it'll show it to you. Algorithms! And you're not going to want to miss all of our November Basho coverage, and of course, the end-of-year episodes, which I know are yours and my favorite. So everyone, stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.